You know, it's been nice over the last few months not having to talk about Zack Snyder after Rebel Moon Part 1 fell flat on its face last year. Despite all the incessant marketing for the movie and his fan base endlessly screaming about how great the movie was going to be and how it was going to change the face of cinema as we know it, the film itself was just atrocious. From its awful and thin characters, exposition, heavy dialogue, and endless and unnecessary slow-mo shots every other moment. The film just became one of the biggest jokes of 2023. Plus, you just had the inauthentic and manufactured attempt to recreate the Snyder Cut phenomenon by promising just several different versions of the same movie in a few months. You know, the true rated R, hardcore, edgy Snyder Cut with more CGI tentacles and even heavier exposition. It all just felt so gross, and it was just a cheap marketing ploy to make Rebel Moon a thing. It's anything but a thing. You know, but the film had its 2 weeks of coverage, and like that, like a fart in the wind, it was gone. Only brought up in conversation at the end of the year when talking about, you know, the worst movies of 2023. It was on many people's worst lists. But part 2 of Snyder's sci-fi Drek is coming out soon, so he went on Joe Rogan, of all people, to talk about Rebel Moon and his career. And as I expected, you know, he just started saying, as he often does, just really truly dumb things and spreading false information. And one of those things that he was just lying about or just seemed to have a profound misunderstanding about was Barbie and Rebel Moon and the amount of people that viewed each film. Went on to say, and this is just so ridiculous, saying how more people probably saw Rebel Moon than Barbie, and how that film would have done even better than Barbie. Again, the movie that was the highest grossing film of 2023, which made well over $1 billion, going on to say that Rebel Moon would have outgrossed that film. And I just wanted to read an excerpt here. I have this article from Variety, but you can really find it anywhere. And just this quote is so incredibly frustrating, and I think it is a true look into how his mind operates and how he just lives in his own fantasy world, and his perceptions of reality, at least in how people view movies, is just so incredibly warped to me. This is what he had to say to Joe Rogan. You think about Netflix, for instance, where you push a button, Snyder said. Rebel Moon, right? Say right now it's almost at 90 million views, right? 80 or 90 million accounts turned it on, give or take. They assume 2 viewers per screen, right? I mean, you're okay, you're making assumptions, but okay. That's the kind of math. It's a kind of math. It's Snyder math, no doubt about that. So you think if that movie was in the theater at a distribution model, that's like 160 million people supposedly watching based on that math. 160 million people at a $10 ticket would be, what is that math? I don't know. That is true. You don't know. 160 million times 10. That's 1.6 billion. So more people probably saw Rebel Moon than saw Barbie in the theater, right? What are you even talking about? That's not how that works. First of all, the fact that you would say like, oh, more people would obviously go to the theater to see Rebel Moon than Barbie. But it's like, what do you mean? No, people went out of their way to go see Barbie. And that's what made that movie so incredibly successful. Whether you like the movie or not, that's what made that film so commercially successful. The fact that he's not even considering like, well, people saw Rebel Moon at their own convenience at home. It was very easy to do so. Just to say that, well, people watch it at home means that they would obviously go out to the theater and say, like, how do you know that? That's not true at all. That is completely ridiculous. And he goes on to say this. And that's how crazy Netflix is, Snyder continued. That's the distribution model that they've set up. I was at this thing the other day, and we were talking about Rebel Moon 2, and we were like, well, talk about Rebel Moon, the first one. I'm like, no, go fucking watch it. Okay, I know you have it at your house. It's not like a theater situation. You could turn it on your phone right now and watch it right there if you wanted. That's how crazy it is. This model, this machine they've built is really something else. It's really crazy if you think about it. And of course, the other thing he does not bring up is the fact, how long did people actually watch the movie? Yes, you might have had people that actually clicked on and started watching the film, but they probably could have tuned out of the entire movie itself, not even actually finished the film. You know, like Netflix is including anyone that starred the movie. That's the kind of the data that he's which I really do question where he's getting anything from nowadays. But yeah, they might have only watched 30 minutes of the movie and stopped watching it and moved on to something else completely. Of course, he doesn't factor that in. So his logic, his model, his math. What is math, Zack Snyder? I don't know what Zack Snyder math is, but I just don't think it's accurate at all. And of course, this is all just trying to drum up excitement in his mind, drum up excitement for Rebel Moon Part 2, whatever it's going to be called, Scargiver, and because of the fact that, yes, even though Rebel Moon, when it first came out, it had a high viewership, no doubt about it, like no one started talking about it. This was supposed to be Netflix's Star Wars. It was supposed to be their Lord of the Rings. This is supposed to be the next big franchise. But then after just, 2 weeks, if that, like no one talked about it anymore. If it was mentioned, most people were just making fun of it. Most people were just talking about how it was one of the worst movies of 2023. And so I have no idea how he's making this comparison. It simply doesn't make any sense. And it just goes back to the fact that I feel like this whole Rebel Moon I just feel like this whole Rebel Moon franchise feels so incredibly inauthentic. The fact that Snyder and Netflix made the decision to try to recreate the Snyder Cut phenomenon, to drum up excitement for the movie, it never sat well with me. And I think it's really manipulative, and I think it's a really bad practice. There's no excuse as to why they couldn't have released the full version on Netflix. It's like it didn't have a huge distribution in theaters. It was in a couple theaters, around the world, if that. Certainly in the case of the United States. So this whole idea of like, oh, they wanted this version, I wanted that version. It's like, no. You did this on purpose just to generate some sort of fervor within your bizarre fan base. And I guess any other people that thought this was actually real, that this new Snyder Cut was actually real, where in reality, it's not at all. And plus, he just had some idiotic things to say about Batman. And I have this article via IGN where he really goes into his comments about Batman on Joe Rogan's podcast, and I'll just go ahead and read this, and I'll break it down for you guys. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice director Zack Snyder said DC is making the Cape Crusader irrelevant if he can't kill, so I guess everything that Matt Reeves has done is irrelevant. Okay, yeah, nice comment, Zach. Speaking on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, Snyder said he often feels himself in trouble, quote-unquote, with fans because of his deconstructionist point of view, but assured it's because I care that I want to take him apart. He used the example of Batman traditionally choosing not to kill his enemies, which is a concept present in most comics and films, instrumental to his iconic relationship with the Joker. He had this to say: Batman can kill his canon. I'm like, okay, the first thing I want to do when you say that is I want to see what happens. And they go, well, don't put him in a situation where he has to kill someone. And so I love how, like, his reaction to that is like, then I'm going to do the opposite. That is not you wanting to be deconstructive. That is not you wanting to be deep. That's just you being an edgelord. That's just you taking this traditional way in which the hero is presented, the things that have defined him to his core for decades, for half a century now. It's like, well, I want to do the complete opposite of that. Not because he has a good idea, not because he thinks that is insightful, interesting, but he just wants to make it look cool. Everyone wants to think that Zack Snyder is this auteur, someone that is head and shoulders next to numerous filmmakers like Steven Spielberg or Christopher Nolan or Stanley Kubrick, and that he stands head and shoulders next to them. He's like, no, he is not as interesting or introspective as any of those filmmakers. He just likes to take things and wants to make them in his own way by adding edgy things to them, dark things to them, and with filling them with plenty of slow motion. That's what it is. This deconstructed, like he likes deconstructive content. It's like, I think he likes the imagery in deconstructive content. I think he likes the imagery in things like The Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen, but he doesn't understand anything about them. He just sees the page and wants to recreate the page, but not really get into what defines those works at all. And he goes on to say this, and this is also really troubling. You're protecting your God in a weird way, right? You're making your God irrelevant if he can't be in that situation. He has to now deal with that. And if he does do that, what does that mean? What does it tell you? Does he stand up to it? Does he survive that as a god? As your god, can Batman survive that? And the fact that he just keeps referring to Batman as a god is insane to me. Because at the end of the day, he never approaches these heroes as people. because that's what they are. You know, he never wants to tap into their humanity. He is obsessed with just them as these messianic figures, as these larger than life figures, you know, as literal gods. Like, we never get to know them as people. They're always far away, where so much of the things that have perfectly defined Batman or Superman or Wonder Woman is their sense of humanity, is the things that make them human. And the fact that he just doesn't think about these characters in that way is troubling, and probably what led to the situation that we inevitably got with the DCEU, the Zack Snyder murderverse, as I like to call it. And that, to me, is just really disappointing. And the last thing I really wanted to highlight is the fact that he seems so obsessed with presenting just these characters in a completely alternative way, in a much different way. And like, he's trying to justify, always trying to justify that his Batman, his Superman are murderers and have psychotic tendencies. He's like, but yeah, I know these things have defined these characters, you know, for decades, and there's been great stories about them, you know, because of those things that have defined them. But I don't want to do that. I want to present a situation where this is what it is. The thing is, it's like, okay, I understand that you want to present them in that different way, but that doesn't make it good. He's talking about, it's like, and that's why this is what I'm doing with Batman and Superman is so great. So the fact that I'm making them kill and presenting that situation is what makes that good. It's like, no, it can still be really bad, and it was really bad in all those films. It's like, traditionally, Batman and Superman don't wear pink. But by his logic, it's like, well, even though by definition they don't wear pink, I think they should wear pink. Let's put them in a situation, your God here, put them in a situation where they are wearing pink. And therefore, that makes it good. No, it doesn't. That doesn't make it good. That would be ridiculous to see some of these characters in pink. But that's the same, but that's the logic. That's the logic that he's using to apply to this. And it's just like everything, you know, that he's ever created. It's logic with a foundation built on sand, on quicksand. And inevitably, it just doesn't make any sense. And it just makes him look so stupid. It makes him look so dumb. And it just is just further evidence as to why he should have never been in creative control of these characters. Never should have written and directed any of these movies, because he just has such a profound misunderstanding of them. And just it's a profound misunderstanding of, I think, filmmaking in general, certainly when it comes to characters and writing characters and directing people playing these characters. He doesn't seem to just understand that. He thinks that he is holier than thou. He thinks that he is one of the greatest filmmakers living today, but he's simply not. He's one of the worst because of his profound ignorance, because he has this cultist fan base that surrounds him and inflates his ego, inflates his egomania. And that's why so many of his movies have been just so bad over these last few years, why so many people mock his films. And at the end of the day, you know, I'm just so happy that he has no, you know, creative control over these characters anymore. He's not directing DC movies. I'm really hoping that these James Gunn projects will be great, because I want to see these characters represented in a great way and get to know them, these versions, as people, and bring, you know, humanity into them. You know, Zack Snyder can keep making all these awful movies that he wants, so he can keep making these Rebel Moon films that will just probably suck. Certainly part 1 did, and I don't have high hopes for part 2 at all, and that's fine. But I just, for the life of me, I don't understand why so many people have obsessed over this man and would die on the hill for his vision of what film is. It's really bizarre and really off-putting, to be perfectly honest. But that's just my take on this. Just another moment where Zack Snyder just, you know, shows his ass and just proves that he's just one of the worst filmmakers working today. But what about you guys? How do you feel about, you know, his comments in regards to Rebel Moon? What are your expectations of Rebel Moon? What were your opinions on his Batman and his Superman and all of his other DC films? Please let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.